let's start with some basic structures here. So we're going to assume that a man has both of his testes. So testes is plural for singular testis. So right now we are just looking in this sagittal view. This is going to be the left side on this model. So here, this will be the left testis. And the testes are enclosed in a sac-like structure called the scrotum. So that is the outermost part here. And then inside is each testis. The testis has two coverings. There's an outer covering, which is called the tunica vaginalis. And something that's kind of interesting is that is an extension of peritoneum. So it kind of comes around like this. And then there is an inner layer that covers the testis directly, and it actually invaginates different parts inside the testis. I'll show that in just a moment here. But that inner layer is called the tunica albuginea. For the remainder of the structures, I like to kind of do a trace format, meaning we're going to follow the pathway of sperm from their creation to their exodus. And when we follow it that way, not only do we learn the different parts, but we learn it in an order. So we're more likely to follow that information. So just very quickly back to this model, know that inside the testis, we have these structures called seminiferous tubules, and that is where sperm are first created. So if we were to kind of think big picture, we would say our starting point is the testis, but really, if we were to get into a little bit more detail, we would be in the seminiferous tubules. And when you're looking at spermatogenesis, we actually dive a lot deeper into that concept right there. So coming back to this model here, if we were to start in the testis, the next place sperm would travel is this structure called the epididymis. And the epididymis kind of hooks over the side and the top of the testis right there. And then from there, it will go through this tube called the vas deferens or the ductus deferens. So it doesn't matter which term you learn. That tube is called the vas deferens or the ductus deferens. And then we will come to this bulging structure called the ampulla of the ductus deferens or the ampulla of the vas deferens. From there, sperm will go into this small passageway called the ejaculatory duct. From the ejaculatory duct, we are now in this passageway called the prostatic urethra. Now for my students, when we looked at the urinary system, you just called this whole passageway the urethra, and that was fine back then, but now we want to get a bit more specific. In a male, we further divide the urethra into 3 different regions, and it depends on what part of the genito and urinary tract we're in. So this organ right here is the prostate. Therefore, the urethra that is within the prostate is called the prostatic urethra. So again, we were just right here in the ejaculatory duct. So then as sperm travels on, we are now in the prostatic urethra. Continuing on this pathway, we're now in this area right here. So notice that we have this band of tissue here. This is actually called the urogenital diaphragm. And the passageway that is just in this area right here, where my finger is, that is called the membranous urethra. So everything above that is going to be the prostatic urethra. And then just this short section right here that is associated with that urogenital diaphragm, that is the membranous urethra. And then beyond that, if we were to continue this way, now we are in the longest part of the male urethra, and that is called the penile or the spongy urethra. From there, this is a term we saw in the urinary system. Now we are at the external urethral orifice. So again, if we're thinking about the pathway and the structures in which sperm are conducted, we would be in the testis, then the epididymis, then the vas deferens, then the ampulla of the vas deferens, the ejaculatory duct, prostatic urethra, membranous urethra, and then spongy or penile urethra, and then finally the external urethral orifice. So now what I'd like to focus on are the structures that help produce semen. What we just looked at was really just the pathway that sperm travel from creation to exodus. But sperm cannot survive on their own. As my students will see next week, the vagina has a very acidic environment, and that's a protective factor to help inhibit bacterial growth. And so what the male's body does is to help combat that acidity, we have these three accessory structures that are going to produce alkaline fluids to help the sperm survive. So it's kind of cool thinking about how what we learned in the acid-base chapter applies to the reproductive system. So the first one I want to point out are the seminal vesicles. Remember, we will have a right and a left for these, and we're just looking at one side on this model. And that seminal vesicle right here is on the posterior part of the urinary bladder. So when we're looking at the bladder and we're figuring out, does this belong to a male or female? Another way that you could tell, in addition to the prostate, was if you saw those seminal vesicles. The seminal vesicles are here right close to the ampulla of the vas deferens, and it merges together into that ejaculatory duct. So the seminal vesicles will produce and secrete a fluid into the ejaculatory duct. Now the sperm plus the seminal fluid from the seminal vesicles. Then when it's in the prostatic urethra, the prostate is also going to contribute seminal fluid to the sperm. And then as it moves on, our last accessory structure is the bulbourethral gland, or the Cowper's gland. That will secrete seminal fluid via the bulbourethral duct into the spongy or penile urethra. So it's at this point, once the seminal vesicles and the prostate gland and the bulbourethral glands have secreted all of their seminal fluids, now at this point, we officially have semen. One thing I'd like to quickly point out is this prostatic urethra and the ejaculatory duct. If a male has an enlarged prostate, meaning we have inflammation here, we can understand better now why that would be an issue. That actually affects two organ systems for a man. It could impede his urinary functions, but also his reproductive functions. So prostate health is super important for males. Okay, let's look at some other structures here. So again, just familiarizing ourselves, we have the scrotum, we have the testes, and we're looking at different cuts of the layers we have in this area. If we were to go to this right here, focusing on what is being represented as the blood vessels, I just want to point out that we have one testicular artery. The major blood vessel, I should say, is the one testicular artery, which will go to each testis. And then surrounding that testicular artery is going to be a network of veins called the pampiniform plexus, and that helps with temperature control with the blood that's going to the testis, because temperature control is really important for sperm production. And so that network of veins, they'll actually come together to form that single testicular vein up here in the abdominal pelvic region. So down here, you see the testicular artery, the pampiniform plexus, but in this area, you would see the testicular artery and the testicular vein. This part right here, this is kind of a tough encapsulation, and that's called the spermatic cord. And the spermatic cord encases some major structures such as the vas deferens. So remember, the vas deferens is what connects to that epididymis, and then it goes into the ejaculatory duct. So we have the vas deferens inside of this. We have that testicular artery inside of this, the pampiniform plexus, and we also have nerves as well. And it's really important that we realize that this stuff that's external has to have a passageway to the abdominal pelvic cavity. So how does this out here connect with what's in here? That is this area right here specifically. There is a tunnel-like passage called the inguinal canal. There's one on either side, and that allows for the passageway of the spermatic cord, okay, to go into the abdominal pelvic cavity. This part right here, that's called the superficial inguinal ring. That's just this part specifically. And if you've ever heard of someone getting a hernia, males are actually more likely to get these types of hernia, which are called inguinal hernias. That is when we have a rupture or a tearing of the superficial inguinal ring. Sometimes lifting very heavy objects, because when we go to lift something heavy, we hold our breath, and when we hold our breath, we bear down, and that increases intra-abdominal pressure. That might cause this to rupture, and when that happens, the bowel, the small bowel that is in this area, could protrude through that opening. That's an issue that needs to get taken care of by a health professional pretty quickly, or at least evaluated. It's not always an emergency, but sometimes it could be. And the reason why that's important is because if you have bowel coming through that opening right there, and you can't reduce it, meaning you can't push it back in, that bowel could become pinched, and that section could become necrotic or die, and then you really are in big trouble. So this clinically presents as a little lump in this area, and the healthcare provider will try to reduce it, meaning pop it in, see if it stays in. If not, surgery might be required. But that's why we want to understand the spermatic cord and the inguinal canal. Next, we have the penis, which is this structure right here. It is composed of the body or the shaft, and then the glans or the head of the penis. Same here, this would be the shaft and then the glans. And one thing specifically I want to point out is the prepuce or the foreskin. That is this skin specifically. It covers the glans penis. And so if a male has been circumcised, that means that his prepuce has been removed. If a male is uncircumcised, it means it is still there. So I would say that this is a good example of an uncircumcised penis. And this would be a better example of what a circumcised penis would look like. When this gets removed, the glans penis is more defined. Within this area, we have 3 erectile tissues. So I'm just leaving this model here so you can kind of see how it fits together. We have a paired corpus cavernosa. So cavernosa is plural for cavernosum. We're only seeing the right corpus cavernosum here, but there are 2 of these. And then we have one, so that's what that purple is right there. And then we have one corpus spongiosum. And you can see that that spongiosum is longer, and it's going to go into the glans right here. Another way that I like to teach students to remember this, and the difference between the two, is that the corpus spongiosum surrounds the spongy urethra. So that might help you remember both that part of the urethra and this erectile body right here. All 3 erectile bodies have venous spaces that are capable of filling up with blood during arousal. Okay, that's all I have for you. So my big tips for this part are to learn the external parts, and then for the internal parts, go through the structures in the order in which sperm would travel, and then the structures that help produce semen. And I think that'll be a great organized way for you to learn these structures. See you next time.